Alright, what's up, YouTube? It's time for another case in point. And today I'm going to address the elephant in the room. The election. It seems to be a highly trending topic right now. And even though it's been a few days and some of the things have quieted down, there seems to be so much speculation. Now, one of the things that I hear a lot from liberals is there's no evidence of voter fraud, and that is simply not true. There is evidence of voter fraud. Now, whether or not you're willing to admit that it exists or that it's there doesn't mean it's not. I'm going to show, some things, but one of the things that they say is dead people voting is not a problem. Like, it's not systemic. It's not enough to sway an election. But is that true? And the answer is no, it's not true. It's fully capable of swaying an election. And the proof of that is when Bush and Gore were running for the presidency, and it came down to the state of Florida. Bush won Florida by less than 600 votes. 600. Determined the outcome of that election, because when Bush took Florida, that gave him enough votes to put him over the 270 mark. So, literally 600 votes determined that election. Now, is that the case now in 2020? No, I don't think it is. But the idea that saying that dead votes or illegal votes aren't enough to sway an election, or voter fraud not being widespread, so therefore it's not an issue, is complete and utter stupidity. It's just, I don't even know what to call that other than illogical. So, and here's some things. So I want to break this down. In Pennsylvania, it is just coming out like a couple days ago that possible ballot harvesting is happening. Now, that's illegal in Pennsylvania. Here is the gist of the story. This is still under investigation, so there's no conclusion on this one way or another, but I'm just saying it needs to be looked into and investigated, and here's why. 25,000 people or more across the state of Pennsylvania requested absentee ballots. They were all in nursing homes, and they requested them all at the same time. Now, I don't know if you believe in coincidence or not, but I don't believe in coincidence to that effect. Like, the idea that over 25,000 nursing home residents decided that this was the year that they were going to get involved. I just don't see it. I don't see 25,000 people requesting an absentee ballot all at the same time. So that needs to be looked into. And here's the thing. Older people tend to vote Trump. Elderly people tend to lean Republican. So if these people did vote, and it is legitimate, they probably voted for Trump. If they didn't request these ballots and it was filled out by someone else in their name and it's not them voting, that is voter fraud. That's 25,000 cases of voter fraud. And I don't care if they voted for Trump. I don't care if they voted for Biden. If it was an illegal vote, it needs to be thrown out. Also, in California, in one county, hundreds of people are voting after they died. So I know what you're thinking is, well, that's just hundreds out of millions. That's not a problem. That's not widespread. But again, the entire state of Florida has millions of people. It's got a huge population. And Florida was decided by less than 600 votes. So you can't tell me that if LA County goes red because of illegal votes or dead votes, because it was that close, it was like, say 300 people determined LA County. You see what I'm saying? Like, that makes a huge difference. And you can't say that it doesn't. And it's happening in a lot of Democratic stronghold cities. Now, it doesn't mean it's not happening in Republican cities. I'm sure it is. And if it is, it needs to be rooted out. I don't understand why it's so difficult for these states to get control of their voter rolls. You just go in and compare it. You want to lower unemployment? Create that job. It's that simple. Have somebody that just compares voter rolls to deceased rolls. But in Chicago, and this is going back years. I'm not talking about 2020. No. I'm going back years. 2008, 2012, 2016. Hundreds of people are voting from the grave. And some of them are even registering after their death. Decade after they've died, they'll register to vote. So it's not like they were just left on the voter rolls and never taken off. No, some of these people are registering after they deceased. So not only are they voting from the grave, they seem to be coming out and registering from the grave. And that's a problem. And this happened in Chicago. Baltimore, Denver, Detroit, Philadelphia. And these are all in some of the swing states that you now see being played out in this election. So, again, I don't believe in that kind of coincidence. And the mathematics isn't there. I mean, seriously. There's so many mathematical anomalies, and I'm going to post a link in the description below that you can literally go in and look at some of the mathematical impossibilities of this happening. So check that out if you want to. But it is literally a statistical almost impossibility for these things to not have affected this race. And when you have people backdating ballots, when you have sworn affidavits of people backdating ballots, that's an issue because any vote that was brought in after the election and then was postmarked either the 3rd or before, even though it may have been received on the 6th, that vote should not be counted. Our voting system has rules in place, and you have to play by those rules. And I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, you must abide by those rules. All votes do not count. Illegal votes do not count. I don't care if it's dead people voting. I don't care if it's illegitimate voters on the voter rolls. I don't care if it's people that once lived in a state and then moved out of a state, and now somebody is receiving a ballot at their address and that other person's name and filling it out. Everything, every illegal vote should not matter. It should not count. Illegal votes should not determine an election. And yet, that's what we're seeing. Now, a lot of people, especially liberals, are saying that sworn affidavits are not evidence. And that amazes me. That level of disconnect, that cognitive bias, amazes me. Because you will hear Democrats parrot ad nauseum some of the things that reporters, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Fox News, any of them, when they use an anonymous source, people will jump on that like it is the gospel. You know, some anonymous source who is unwilling to put his name on the line, and there's no repercussions if what he says comes out to be untrue, or even if the source even exists. There's no verification for an anonymous source. Yet they'll run with it. They will run with that narrative of an anonymous source, and therefore what is being reported in that article is factual, it is correct. But when you have a sworn affidavit, which is a person putting their name, their reputation on the line, and risking prison for perjury, they just dismiss that just outright. They just, that's not evidence. But you're willing to accept an anonymous source as evidence, but you're not willing to accept a sworn affidavit? Do you know what kind of illogical sense that you have to have so much cognitive bias that it is unreal? It's literally the ostrich bias. Meaning, oh God, the amount of stupidity that requires is beyond me. Because how can you accept something from a source that can't be verified, that even the source exists, but you have a sworn affidavit and you go, well, that's not proof of anything? That makes no sense. And the idea that because voter fraud isn't systemic or widespread, that it's not a problem is also illogical. Again, a few hundred votes can determine a state. A few hundred votes can determine a county. A few hundred votes can move an entire nation in the wrong direction or the right direction. And I'm not saying that Trump or Biden, I don't think this election is over. And I would never, and I don't care if it's Joe Biden or Trump or anybody else, if there is this much evidence or the appearance of impropriety, I would never concede, ever, with this kind of information out there, with these many coincidences. There's no way. And anybody who is saying that, well, he should concede for the democracy, shut up. This is our democracy. And if you are willing to accept a president over that his party had to actively cheat to get him in, just because you don't like the person in there, and again, I don't care if it's Trump, Biden, or anybody else. If you have to cheat, if your party has to circumvent our democracy, you don't deserve to be in office. You have no right, you have no reason to be given that much power. You have nothing that, if you're that corrupt, what wouldn't you do? And I'm sorry. Like, you can sit there and yell Russia collusion all you want, but the fact is there was zero proof that Trump conspired with the Russians to get him elected. And if you want to say that they interfered, that's fine, because I'm sure they did. But if you're going to say that, then you also have to admit that China and Iran interfered in this election to get Biden. You literally have to keep a consistent logic. You can't just dismiss claims based on whether or not you like the orange man or not. Just don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that goes for Republicans and Democrats. If you think that this election is going to be overturned because of voter fraud, don't get your hopes up. But at the same time, if you think it's a foregone conclusion that Biden is the winner and that the outcome is always going to show that Biden is the winner, don't get your hopes up, because you might not get the results that you like.